Hello everyone, my name is Alvaro Sabu and today we're gonna learn how to build our own custom field plugin using the Storyblok Specialized SDK. Why is this feature so powerful? Because it allows you to fulfill requirements that are really specific to your use case that are not covered by the base field types that we offer in Storyblok. This is what we call field plugins. Field plugins are standalone applications that are embedded within the visual editor in inline frames, what we call iframes. And I know, as developers, we are taught since the beginning to fear iframes, but fear not because in Storyblok we actually know how to use them. So the way this works under the hood is actually pretty simple. So we have our visual editor here and we have our custom field plugin here. So the visual editor is going to communicate through the window post message to provide information such as the current content and maybe some options. Then the custom field plugin is going to take that information and maybe is going to transform it and send it back to the visual editor to show it in the UI interface or add it to the final JSON that you are going to fetch from the SDK. So this communication, that is two-way communication, is going to be handled by the Storyblok Field Plugin package. So you don't need to worry about how to send the messages at all. This abstraction layer provides an object that contains two main properties. One is data, which is the state, and the other one is actions, which provides a lot of different methods so you can communicate with the visual editor, such as open a model, for example. But enough theory, let's jump to the fun part, which is basically creating the field plugin using the CLI. Before we get started, let's check that we have all installed. So what we will need for this tutorial is Node, preferably up to 18 from version 14, okay? We also will need Yarn, so check that you have Yarn installed. If not, you can install it globally. Also, we need NPM to be higher than 5.2 or something like that. And last but not least, check that you have Git installed, okay? So these are the prerequisites. Once you have all installed, then we can continue with the next part. To create a new project, we are going to use the Storyblok Field Plugin CLI that is available on NPM. So to do that, we're going to do npx Storyblok Field Plugin CLI. Make sure that you're selecting the latest and create. Once you hit enter, you're going to be prompted with a wizard. Okay, so first I need to install the Storyblok Field Plugin globally. So yes. And then select the package manager that you will use. In this case, I'm going to use Yarn. So how many fields potentially you want to do in this repository? You can choose between creating a standalone, like one plugin in one repo, or you can create a mono repo with multiple plugins. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to choose the first one. Then we're going to give it a name. Okay, so my first SB plugin, enter. And we can choose what template do we want to use. So we have the option to create it with Vue 2, with Vue 3, with React, or vanilla JavaScript. I'm going to choose Vue 3, and then I'm going to let the install manager to install everything. Once everything is installed, we can open our plugin here using cd, and then let's just serve to see what happens. Okay, so it's using Vite under the hood. And once you start running in the serve mode, it's going to give you some quick links to the partner portal and my plugins, so you can check them on Storyblok, and also a direction in your local host to check your project. But more interesting here is going to provide you a sandbox, and the sandbox emulates the visual editor, so you can have a more real visualization of how your plugin is going to work within the visual editor. So let's click on this one, and if we go here, we're gonna see the default field plugin that comes with the installation. This is the preview of how it's gonna look inside of the visual editor, and this is pretty handy because then I can see here, like, okay, I have a button that increments a value here. I can even open a model, okay? And I'm gonna explain it later, but you can also open the asset manager from here. So this is the field plugin URL. We can add some options here in case you want to configure from the visualizer some of the things that are gonna happen inside of this. And then it's gonna give you like how it looks in terms of the JSON that is gonna be returned with the fetch API. Okay, so the response data is gonna be something like this. Now let's jump into the code to see how it works. Once you run the CLI and you select the technology that you want to use, in this case, remember we selected Vue 3, but to be fair, it's gonna be exactly the same for React and vanilla JavaScript. All the concepts are the same, okay? So you will be able to follow along with this tutorial even if you're not a Vue person. The first thing that I'm going to show you is, okay, we have the package JSON with some of the commands, really standard, bit build, and also deploy. We're going to go on deploy layer. And all the code is inside of the source, okay? So in this case, we have the main TS. Here's where we are basically bootstrapping and mounting the Vue instance into the DOM, okay? So that's why we are using the document body app and root element, and then we are mounting the app. This is for Vue. In React, you are going to have a JSX. Okay, we have some global styles which are pretty handy because, of course, when you're using this inside of the visualizer, it's going to look better if you use the same color and design. So that's why we provide some default CSS variables that contain the same colors, the same like shades, and so on for the visual aspect of the plugin, okay? So the same fonts, for example, and some default formatting and stuff for the application, okay? So this is gonna maintain the same look and feel that the visualizer has. What else do we have here? If we go inside of components, we're gonna see that we have this field plugin .vue. And this field plugin.vue, let's say it's the root of everything, okay, is using the field plugin package for Vue 3. In React, for example, is gonna be a hook. Here is just a composable. And then you use that composable and you can pass some options to that. One of the options is validate content. So you can add a validation on what type of data do you want to return in the plugin. In this case, I'm going to show you in a moment. Here in the field plugin, example is basically our application, okay, or a standalone application. And inside of the index is where we have the root of all the app. Here we are going to use the field plugin and say, okay, please validate the content and the content to be a number. Because if you remember correctly here, a field plugin is just a counter that you can increment by using this button. So we are validating here that the content should be a number, and that's what we want to return to the visualizer and the JSON structure when you fetch it. At this point, you probably are wondering what is inside of the plugin, because we're using the plugin object that we received from the composable. We're checking a conditional here with the type to see if it's loaded, so we show it in the application. Then we have something called data that looks like a state, okay? And we have also the actions, which are like methods that you can call between the plugin, right? So let's see what is inside of the plugin itself. I'm gonna use a pre-tag and then just prompt plugin. So let's check it here in the sandbox, and now we can see an object that contains a property. So this property is gonna tell you when, like the status of the field plugin inside of the visualizer. So if it's already loaded, then you can show it. Then you have this data object, and this data object is just basically the state. It gives you information about the story, where it's being used. So I don't know, if you're using it in the home page, it's gonna give you all the context of that story. Then you're gonna have also the language of the content and some options. The options are basically a key pair, key pair values that you can set on the visual editor to customize what you're going to do inside. So let's say you pass this, let's say you want to pass dark mode, and you're going to say false, okay? And inside of here in the data, you're going to see that it reflects all the options that you pass. So you can customize or let the content editor customize whatever is inside. You're also going to have the UUID and the content object or the content value. Okay, in this case, we're using a number for it, but it could be an object, it could be an array, whatever you want. Okay. Also, we have is ModalOpen. So for example, if I go here and open the model, you're gonna see that it reactively changed to true. Okay, so this is how we are telling, like checking if the model is open. There is a function here. Let's talk about actions, right? Because actions, we cannot see it here in the prompt, but if we go here in the VS Code, we actually see how it's built. So you have a method that is setContent that will allow you to modify the state. You have setModalOpen, which is gonna basically toggle the model, request context, and SelectAsset. The SelectAsset is gonna open the asset manager, okay? To illustrate a little bit better how to use the actions, I'm gonna use something a little bit more complex than a number, okay? So, because basically here we're returning, whenever we increase the value, we're returning content equal 1. But let's do something tastier. Let's change this and say object, and if it's an object, yes, the content. If not, let's set an initial value. So I'm gonna put a number of stars, okay? So we save here, and we're gonna have a problem because now this component here, which is the increment, like the counter for the increment, is now showing an object instead of a number. So we can solve that by passing exactly the value that we want to add. So with that we solve it, but we need to change the on increase. So here's when I'm going to remove this here, and I'm going to use a function that we're going to create. So increase stars. Okay. So we go to our script and we open a function that is increase stars. And then we're gonna use the setContent action. So plugin actions setContent, and we're gonna pass the previous content. So plugin data content, and we are gonna change the stars. So the stars are gonna be plugin data content stars plus 1. Okay, if we click save and we go here, let me refresh. Okay, so I increment this, and you can see that now we have on the data content, we have an object with the stars. Okay, and the field plugin response is now going to contain our object, so we can increase it as before. But you probably gonna ask me like, okay, Alvaro, why do I need to use the setContent if I could do something like this? Let's use plugin data and try to modify the content directly from the plugin data. I don't have the optional this, so I'm gonna do something like this. Okay, content stars. Let's see if this actually works. So I'm gonna refresh here, and I'm gonna do the increment. So here the increment is working, but you can see that the field plugin response hasn't been changed. It doesn't have our object with a start. So in order to let them know the visual editor to change the structure, you need to use the plugin action setContent. Now it comes the moment of truth, which is deploying our plugin into our visual editor and our Storyblok instance. So to do that, we have to make sure that we are able to build it. When I was coding, I noticed that I had some TypeScript issues, and I solved them by creating an interface with the types of the object that I was creating with the stars. So content stars, and then I'm using it here on the code. Once everything is fixed and you are able to build, let's try npm run build, okay? And this is gonna run the Vue.tsc and the bit build. If everything went well, then you're gonna have something like this. So to deploy it into your Storyblok instance, you are gonna need to have a personal access token. To get yours, you can go to your account here and say account settings, and then under the tab of security, you're gonna have personal access token. So let's generate a new one, and I'm gonna put, well, 30 days, but I'm gonna remove it when the video is out. So my plugin access token. Okay, so I generate it, and then it's already copied. So I can do nr deploy. Okay, and it's gonna give you this CLI where it's gonna ask you for your personal access token. Here we're gonna copy our access token. Don't worry, I'm gonna remove this access token, so even if you see it, it doesn't matter. And I'm gonna save. This is really nice. It allows you to save it locally in an environment.local. That's pretty nice. So where to deploy the plugin? You can have the option of deploying it in my plugins. So it's gonna be like private for you, like to your user. You can set it in your partner portal in case you have it. So everyone in your space can use it, and also in the organization to share it with the rest of the team. So I'm gonna say my plugins, and let's put it on a name. So my first SB plugin, nice. Okay, so it's checking existing ones. We're good. Let's say yes. And as quick as that is deploy. So now let's see how we can use it in a Storyblok visualizer. To see your plugin in the Storyblok instance, you can go to my account and then select my plugins. If everything went well with the deploying, you should be looking at your plugin right away on the list. But how can we use it in actual content in one of our spaces? So I'm going to use this space right here, and I created a Stargaze component in the home page. Let's define a new type of field, which is going to be count. When we select the field type here, we are going to select plugin. This is the type of field that will allow us to connect our custom field plugin that we just deployed. If we go to the configuration, inside of here, we need to look for custom type dropdown. Inside of here, we're gonna see not only our plugins, but also the plugins from the organization. So I'm gonna write here my first SB plugin. I'm gonna save and get back here, save, and then close. So now you can notice that inside of the visualizer where we define this count field, we have our application, the same that we were using in the sandbox. So everything works. If I click here and increment the number of stars, I prepare the frontend to receive the data from the JSON and add some like GitHub stars, like emojis, okay? But if I save here, I want to show you how it does it look in the JSON. So this is the JSON that the frontend is consuming, and here inside of content and inside of the body, you can see the field or the component Stargaze, the block, with the actual field count and stars too. So this is how the data that you prepared on your custom field plugin is going to look like in the end of JSON. Before we reach the end of this tutorial, I want to quickly show you the other parts of the custom field plugin that we had, which is the modal and the asset selector, and how they interact with the visualizer. So if you remember correctly, we tested it in the sandbox, but it's not necessarily how it's going to work here. So if I open the model here, the model, it is exactly the same. So here we have configured that inside of the model, you have the same component, okay? But probably here you can, I don't know, list an amount of products, images, whatever, okay? But talking about assets, we couldn't show how the asset selector worked because essentially the asset manager is not available on the sandbox, but it is available here. So we can click here and the action will open the asset manager that we have configured. And if I try to upload something, let's use this picture from Vue.js London that I went dressed as a Harry Potter character from Slytherin. I'm gonna just put the Slytherin, upload. I'm gonna select this one, and now you can see the preview on the custom field plugin. And that, Storyblockers, is how you can build a field plugin using the CLI and the visualizer. You can find all the links for the written resources about this topic in the description below. If you have any further questions about this topic, please let us know in the comments section below, and also show us what type of field plugins are you creating for your projects. Don't forget to subscribe and drop a like to feed the gods of the algorithm. See you in the next one. Ciao, ciao!